Have you ever had a question about how you could improve as a public speaker? Well, in this video, I'm going to answer the internet's most common questions about public speaking. So let's start. The first question, how do I stop saying This is quite a common one. If you spend any time listening to yourself back, you might even catch yourself when you're talking saying a lot. And you might think to yourself, you know what, I'd like to not be doing that because I feel like it ruins any performance when I do any public speaking. So there are a few ways that you can reduce or stop saying First of all, you have to identify that you do it. Once you're aware of it, that generally will help you to stop saying Next, you need to not fill up those silences. Every time you think is your brain asking for a second or two to find an answer. So what you need to do is give yourself a couple of seconds. A couple of seconds on the stage feels horrendous, but in reality, it is only a couple of seconds. It's not 30, 50, 60, just one or two. Give your brain a second and it will catch up. On top of that, if it's during your speech and you want to make sure you're not saying all the way through, make sure you've practiced well. Make sure you've prepared what you're going to say. The more familiar your brain is with the path you're taking, it's like walking through a woods which has a well trampled down path. If it's well worn, your brain will naturally fall into the groove and walk along it. So make sure that you do that for yourself, giving yourself the opportunity to help your brain without overloading it. What is the secret to overcoming nerves? Well, the biggest secret to overcoming nerves is acknowledging that everybody gets nervous, even the best speakers. Even those speakers that you think they're amazing, they must not feel nervous. They're getting on stages and doing hour-and-a-half keynotes. They still get nervous. We all do. It's a natural human trait, especially when we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. We start to feel the nerves rising. Think about the first day you went to your new job, your first job. You felt really nervous about going, didn't you? You felt anxious and unsure about what it was going to be like. Yet once you've done it for a long time, you don't feel nervous anymore. Once you've been going there every day, the nerves disappear pretty rapidly. And the same is true for public speaking. When you're pushing yourself onto bigger stages or onto the stage for the first time, you are going to feel nervous. It's natural. Acknowledging it's natural is the first step in overcoming it. And after that, it's all about finding ways, tactics that work for you to help reduce and lower the nerves and just learning to overcome it. Once you know you can overcome the nerves, you'll know next time that you can do it. And then the nerves seem to fall away. So everybody gets nervous, even speakers who've been doing it a long time. You just have to practice. What do I do if I lose my words? If you lose your place? Well, first of all, pause. Don't panic, because what happens when you can't remember what's coming next, generally you start to panic. If you have your notes on you, which you should, please always get on stage with notes. Pop them out, have a look, put them back. No one cares. You can make light of it. You can go, I've just forgotten what I was going to say next. Let me have a look. And everyone would chuckle and laugh and move on. It happens to everybody from time to time. We lose. Have you had that when you're talking to somebody and you lose the thread of what you're saying? It happens. It happens to all of us. So don't freak out. Just calmly take out your notes, check what comes next, and then carry on. If you don't have your notes on you, I can't reiterate enough times, you must write out notes and take them with you. They give you so much confidence knowing they're just there for you. But if you don't have notes on you, backtrack. What was the last thing you said? Try to get back into the groove. And like we said earlier, that well-worn path, if you practice a lot, you should get back into the groove and then you should be able to pick up where you were. And if you really, really can't remember what comes next, just move on. Don't flail about on the stage trying to remember. It gets embarrassing for the audience. They start to feel uncomfortable. If you really can't remember, move on. It's time to move on. Next, how can I sound confident if I'm nervous? Great question. Well, we need to lower our pitch. Don't talk from up here in your chest. It makes your voice squeaky. Talk from down low in your belly. It sounds like you've got a deeper, more bassing voice. That gives you confidence. If your voice sounds good, you feel confident. Then you want to slow down your pace. Don't race through your speech. It will just lower your confidence. And then pause. Strategic pauses, powerful pauses to allow for impact. And if you can feel like you're impacting your audience, you will feel more confident and the nerves will melt away. If you can get going past the first few minutes, you will feel the nerves disappear. So we just need to get you on the stage, get your speech started correctly, and then your nerves will fall away. Should I memorize my entire speech? No, don't memorize speeches. Why? Why should you not memorize your speech? Because it comes across as wooden. You can't create connection when it seems like you're reading a script. So what we want to do instead is get familiar by practicing our speech through, but we don't want it to be a written out script that we're following word for word. That won't sound right to the audience. It won't sound good to the audience. So instead, we want to get familiar with our material to the point where it sounds nice and natural, but not to the point where we're over rehearsing it. And then we have that authentic connection. And this allows for wiggle room. If you're making a point with the audience, well, you don't have to just keep ploughing on. If that point is really resonating and you want to stop and allow it to ruminate, you don't have to just plough on to the next point. You can make that point and you could ruminate on it if you want to, because you're not tied to a script. Another point about scripts is what happens if you lose your way. You really are tied to a script. You must know what comes next. Otherwise, you won't be able to get back on track. Scripts are too rigid and will cause you to feel too nervous. Is it okay for me to read from my slides? No, do not read from slides. Your slides are not your notes. In fact, I think you should get rid of your slides. They're just in the way. The audience should not be looking at the slides instead of looking at you. If you do use slides, they should be simple. They should be easy to understand and almost need no explanation. Slides should reinforce your point, not be you hiding behind them to deflect attention away from yourself. So don't hide behind your slides. Next question. What if there is a technical failure or people get difficult in the audience? Well, you want to stay composed. You don't want to start flailing around. I always suggest to people that if you're going to use technology, you need to have a backup, B, a sound check, and 3, a backup plan. You must have a way to control the situation if things start to go wrong, because they probably will. And so working with technology, you want to make sure your technology works before you get on the stage. That's what a sound check is for. You want to make sure that you have your backup plan. What happens if these things don't work? If you are using slides, can you go, if you've written everything out on the slide and the slide stops working, how can you carry on? You can't. You need to make sure that you can go without. Make sure you've practiced with your slides and without your slides. Make sure you've practiced with that prop and without that prop. That video which you were going to include, which was going to take up 5 minutes. What happens if that video doesn't work? You need to be able to describe what happens in a way that is compelling to your audience and remain calm. These things happen. Just calmly carry on and try to make it as if nothing's happened, or even banter with the audience about it. Make a little joke out of it. People don't mind, but we just have to be in control of the situation. What about difficult people? Maybe if we're doing question and answers, maybe if someone disagrees with what we're saying. You're in control. If you don't have an answer for them or they're being difficult, you can say, look, let's talk about this afterwards. If they're asking, they're debating with you through the microphone, you say, look, this is not the forum. Let's have a chat with about this afterwards. Or you can say, we're not talking about this. If they're sort of arguing, they're not there to argue with people. So you're in control. Remain calm and make sure you handle it with grace and professionalism, because that will be so much more powerful than, getting into a shouting match with somebody who's sitting in the audience. And finally, how do I keep hold of people's attention all the way to the end? Well, we've spoken before about hooks. We want to hook attention, but we want to also be engaging. We need to make what I call loops. We're constantly making loops through our speech. Things which capture the people's attention as they're listening. We're constantly asking questions which we're going to pay off and answer as we progress through the speech. Make sure you're keeping people engaged. Remember, if you're practicing it or writing it and you're bored, your audience is bored too. It's a great barometer as to whether this is interesting. Write out your speech, practice it, then record yourself practicing it and listen to it back. And if you think to yourself, if at any point when you're listening you're going, oh, I'm bored, then you know your audience will be too. Make it engaging, make it interesting, make it powerful, make it impactful, make it life-changing. And doing these things will help your audience to take plenty away from what you have to say. I hope these questions, or these answers to these questions, have helped you. But if you have a question and you need help, put it in the comments down below and I'd love to answer your questions. And I look forward to chatting with you in the next video.